Now with that, Richie Burke, founder of the Go Getter podcast, will introduce our speaker.
Morning, everyone. Today, I am excited to introduce David Reeves, a guy who has made a large impact on the Milwaukee and tech community since moving back here just a couple of years ago. David is a Milwaukee native who, upon graduation in 1992, began a tech career that moved him around the country, and he spent the last 16 years prior to moving here a couple of years ago in Silicon Valley. He's held executive roles for PTC, a $12 billion software company out of Boston, Zora, where he led the subscription startup in revenue during its peak growth years, and ultimately to an IPO at a $2 billion valuation. David's recent role was the president of Open Gov, where he led the cloud software company from $2 million in revenue to over 500 employees and an $800 million valuation. He also hired 46 people and brought them here to the new Milwaukee office that he opened up. After stepping down from Open Gov in January, David is helping the Marquette Business School in Milwaukee as an executive in residence, as well as advisory work with private equity firms. He's also an investor at a new local VC firm, a board member at Journey House, and an active member in the Milwaukee Tech Hub dedicated to bringing more technology and jobs to our city. I'd like to welcome David Reeves.
And of course, thank you, Richie. Of course, my proudest career moment was being on your podcast. Yeah, that was the highlight. I'm surprised you didn't mention that as my real highlight. Yeah, thank you, Richie, Mary, Todd, and all of you. Thank you for having me speak this morning. It's great to see all of you, and I appreciate the invite. I really do. So what I want to do, just give a little background. I know Richie gave a little bio, but I want to give you a little background on some of the inflection points in my journey and career as to why I even care about bringing tech to Milwaukee and why this it matters to me personally, and why I think it's an exciting opportunity for our city. As Richie said, I was born in Milwaukee. My father's from Bayview and grew up on the south side. My mom's one of 15. I think I'm related to half the south side, so I do have some big roots here. But one of the big things that happened, one of the first inflection points in my life is when I was a young kid, about 14, 15 years old. My parents had a couple of fast food restaurants in the Grand Avenue Mall. And so that was a little bit my first, I give my mom a lot of credit because I guess she was the first kind of entrepreneur where I learned that, where we had our own family business, and just learning all the challenges and the trials and tribulations of that, and being able to manage people at a young age. So I'm very excited about what's going on at 3rd Street Market, because it seems full circle from 35, 40 years ago when my family used to have a presence there. So I went to college at UWM and I studied political science and history. So I know I've had a business career, but really started out there. And then while I was going to school, I actually lived at Marquette with some friends that worked for my mom's restaurant, and lived on Marquette's campus, and that's where I met my wife. So a lot of roots at Marquette, which you'll hear. Not only did I meet my wife there, but my daughter goes there, and so a lot of history with Marquette, and I'm involved now, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Nice to have my daughter there in that. But I've been in tech since graduation. I got a little bit fortunate, when you're looking for a job out of school. I ended up with Southwestern Bell Wireless was my first role, and been in tech ever since. And so that wireless career that I started when I first graduated from college, I had a lot of success at an early age. Ended up moving to Chicago, and while I was in Chicago, I was managing, at a young age, about 25 years old, I had probably 50 to 70 employees, and we were doing wireless systems for some big businesses, including Chicago Board of Trade. And one of the big inflection points in my career is, at the time, the traders were looking to figure out how to be able not to be tethered to the trading floor. And so we were coming up with a wireless solution to figure out how they could get updates on all the commodities. And I partnered with Motorola on what was really early, the real early smartphone concept. In fact, the battery life didn't even last long enough on the phones to make it commercially viable. But anyhow, long story short, it was really revealing, and I was the general manager of the group. And when building that solution, I really learned that it wasn't about the hardware. It was about the software. And Motorola had just come out with the idea of software on the phone. But more importantly, I hired someone to build the software system to interact with the towers and things like that to make the system work. And I very clearly learned that it's not about where the technology is today, it's about where it's going. And I realized at that point that the software is what really brought it all together. And I started a software career in 1998 with a leading engineering software firm out of Boston called PTC. Yeah, unless you're in product development, some of you are shaking your heads. Yes, it's a 12 or 13 billion dollar company now. So a lot of people don't realize how big company it is, but it's really the leader. I used to work with Harley Davidson, and it helps design all the motorcycles and Johnson Controls, Harley, things like that. But so I learned then that it's not about where we are; it's about where we're going, and to try to get in front of technology and the amazing business opportunities associated with kind of understanding where the world's going. At PTC, I ended up getting a chance to help run a company that they bought, which was a smaller company. Even though PTC was almost $1 billion company by that point, I got a chance to run a smaller company, and that was a great opportunity. PTC had moved me out to California and moved me to Silicon Valley. So originally I ran the Western United States, and when I didn't want to move back because my kids had moved around too much, and ended up running a smaller company for them. And while I was there, living in Menlo Park, California, where all the venture capitalists, it's kind of the Wall Street of the West, it just was inevitable that I was going to get even more entrepreneurial and go with even smaller companies. And so I ended up doing that. Went to a company called Zora, which was founded by employee number 9 at Salesforce.com. And he was both the chief strategy officer and the chief marketing officer. And he really kind of coined the phrase the subscription economy. And once again, it was getting ahead of the technology curve. At the time when I joined the company, I think 2011, 2012, the concept was that the world is no longer just about widgets and SKU-based, hammers and, put it on a conveyor belt and SKU, SKUs and things like that. It's about monetizing subscriptions. And at the time, as everybody knows, cable and Wall Street Journal and things like that were known as subscription. But today, as all of you know, so many things in our lives, from food delivery to to vehicles, to everything is now being done in subscription. And I was very fortunate to get in the ground floor in a company that was changing the way companies monetize their relationship with customers, from one-time charge to more subscription, which we all know now and all have plenty of subscriptions. So that was a great experience, though. I was there from 16 million to over 100 million. I led revenue there. And that company has since gone IPO and is now worth a couple $1 billion, as Richie mentioned. So it's a great experience to work with people that are very entrepreneurial and be right in the middle of Silicon Valley in terms of the innovation cycle and the kind of groundbreaking ideas that come out of there. After being there for 4 years and having a very successful run, I was quite excited about potentially the IPO, and I was going to stay and kind of ring the bell and NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. But I had an interesting encounter with a couple individuals. One is Mark Andresen. I don't know how many of you know who Mark Andresen is, but he's the one who invented the internet browser. And he actually is from New Lisbon, Wisconsin. It's a very not too very well-known fact, because he's such an icon in Silicon Valley, having built the original browser and sold it to AOL and things like that. So really cutting edge. And I talked to him. I'd met him through a colleague that used to be at PTC, and he and also the CEO of Open Gov named Zach Bookman. And what they talked about was that everything I had just done at Zora, which is helping very kind of creative entrepreneurs, cutting edge people, I said, well, that doesn't exist in government. In fact, the opposite. The government was probably 15 years behind in technology, and that there's a tremendous business opportunity to help bring cloud technology to government and change the way governments behave and operate and become more effective and more efficient, more like private sector. And to me, I like to bet on inevitable things. I know we all do, but it just felt like, I asked myself the question, is it even possible that the government sector is just going to completely skip this whole cloud disruption that's going on in every other industry? And that just seemed illogical to me. And I thought, if somebody's going to do that, well, I should do that. That should be fun. And so that's what I've done the last 6.5 years. I joined Open Gov, which is now the leading cloud software provider, and really helping modernize cities and counties across the country. We had 1,200 customers, and it was kind of exciting. I joined the company it was just $2 million in revenue. It was kind of a different incarnation, and now it's as Richie said, it's got a nice valuation and is growing nicely. Very proud. We had 520 employees when I left, but most importantly, hired 46 people here in the Milwaukee area. What happened there is another inflection point. I was living in Silicon Valley during the pandemic, and I had bought a second home here in Milwaukee in the Third Ward, and we just loved it. And as we were in Silicon Valley and the world shut down and California really shut down, it was so exciting to escape to Milwaukee and to be with family and friends and loved ones after being gone for 20 years. And I was really, one night over a glass of wine, told my wife, why don't we just stay in Milwaukee? We love it here. Our hearts are here. This is where we should be. And, the truth is I never would have moved from Milwaukee except for there wasn't the technology jobs. So I was in Chicago, Boston for 5 years, Silicon Valley, as Richie said. And it wasn't for not wanting to be here. My heart was always here. But so in moving back, when the offices closed, I put an office here in the Third Ward, in the Global Water Center, and worked on a partnership with Marquette to hire new grads there. And that was a lot of the impetus for moving the office here. And it really got me excited about, what the possibilities are to build more of a tech ecosystem in Milwaukee, and how many other people like me have lived away that really want to be with family and friends in Milwaukee. But how can we create a tech ecosystem that's vibrant and really help diversify the economy, right? I mean, we have a very proud manufacturing heritage, but as we all know, the manufacturing, has its ups and downs based on the economic cycles. But no matter what happens, is if you just look at the last 20 years, nothing's stepping the technology advancements and the growth there. So I put an office in Milwaukee. That was very excited, and really, even while I was there, and I started working with the Milwaukee Tech Hub and trying to think, how can I give back more and help Milwaukee that way. And so a little bit of my mission and why it's left, if I didn't have more opportunity elsewhere. But what I'm seeing, during the pandemic, and since then, is that there's a change in the world and a change in the country. If people are not going to be tethered to offices, which is happening now, you don't have to be in Silicon Valley. You don't have to be in Austin, Texas, or Boston to have a tech career. And as people are starting to move and work from home, and the economy is changing that way, and probably about 500,000 people have moved out of California, the Bay Area anyhow, it's just a tremendous opportunity for our city to capitalize on the change, right? We all know about Zoom and all the different ways to communicate now that people are working from home. So it really comes down to the future is, where is the right quality of life, and where do people want to live? And can we build good tech jobs, in Milwaukee? And I believe we can. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here talking to you all today. I think this is really important for our city. There is so much change in the world, just even since the pandemic, that has created more automation and technology changes, and we just don't have enough people that understand technology to kind of keep up. So it's not just a Milwaukee problem; it's a global problem. They're saying by 2030 there'll be a global shortage of tech workers. That'll be probably about $8.5 trillion in kind of lost revenues, just because we can't fill these jobs and we can't keep up with the pace of innovation. The digitization process that we all know about that happened during COVID. I mean, think about it. All these business processes that used to be manual, people had to get online. I helped governments get online. You can't pay your permits at City Hall when City Hall's closed, right? So I brought permitting online to governments. And when you think about, permitting online and communicating online, and all the different operations of every company now, even old school manufacturing companies, the amount of the business processes that's being driven operationally through technology is important. And now we have artificial intelligence, machine learning. The cloud continues to just accelerate. And there's a talent gap. And I really would like Milwaukee to capitalize on this amazing opportunity. Right now, there's 1.4 million shortage of software engineers. There's just not enough of them. And this is personal for me as well. Another inflection point. My son got a computer science degree, and my wife and I really wanted him to go to Marquette. And at Marquette, he did get accepted in engineering, but they just didn't have the program that he wanted in computer science. And he ended up getting a cybersecurity degree, and now works for Accenture doing helping companies get more secure, with all the threats there. And Marquette is obviously beefing up that department, as are many, but I just think there's more to do there. And these are great paying jobs. One of the reasons I started moving jobs out of Silicon Valley for Open Gov, my average engineer is making $202,000. I couldn't compete with Google and Facebook unless you pay that kind of rate. And even nationally, these are $120,000 a year jobs. And I think if that would be a really boon to our economy to have a lot of those jobs, not just service jobs. And I think we all agree that would be really good for our city and really help it. So the way I'm kind of looking at it, and what I'm doing now, some of the things I'm doing through Marquette, and also just individually or personally that I'm passionate about, is kind of think about it in 3 or 4 ways. First is, how do we improve the CS education? I told you my son's story about Marquette, but so I am working with the Marquette Business School with Tim Hanley, the dean, as well as Mike Lovell, and they've asked me to help kind of really help think about Marquette Business School as more innovation. Great timing with the brand new business school going up, and so really an opportunity for me to help bring some of the things I've learned in Silicon Valley to Milwaukee and to Marquette. And there's just so much going on between crypto and distributed ledgers and Web 3.0. All these things are changing so rapidly, so that it has to get baked into the curriculum at Marquette, at UWM, at Madison, at MSOE. And so I'll probably be working on things like that to improve the education and get more people from also underserved communities. We really need to get people into STEM, into those things, because those are really good paying jobs that are game changing for people. And I'm really excited about that. But once you get the curriculum going, the other thing that I learned in my service at Marquette, I was talking to a professor, and they have the stats too, by the way. I work with the Chamber of Commerce too. 65% of graduates from Wisconsin universities that get computer science or information degrees, they're leaving the state. Well, if you can get a lot more money in Silicon Valley or Austin or Boston, you're going to do it. And when I realized that, it's like, wow, it was great that I moved Open Gov here, and I think I'm starting at some trends in getting Milwaukee known for tech. But if we keep having the brain drain where people are leaving, that's going to get really tough. And you combine that with, I have one of my good friends is general counsel at Northwestern Mutual. If you look at all their job openings, data analysts and all the tech jobs, they can't fill them. I'm also very good friends with Tim Dixon, the CIO at Generac. And whenever I talk to Tim, he says, "David, I can't get talent. I can't get people. There's more jobs in tech that are really good paying jobs that we can't fill here, even in Milwaukee." And so I think that's going to be really part of it, is how do we help the region grow? And Cavalier Johnson's been talking about growth in the city, but how do we grow the city if we can't keep the technology and where the world's going? We want to be on the front end of that, and want to change the image and perception that we can, compete with all these cities that are known for technology. So that's really what I'm excited about. I was excited to move here and to be part of this. We love Milwaukee. My wife and I, we would have never left if we couldn't. And so between the education and the curriculum, also keeping some of the talent, we think that Milwaukee can't realize its full potential and realize the economic diversity and things of jobs and things without doing this. So I'm working with people like Lafayette Crump. I'm going to be meeting with him next week. I'm working with the M7. Possibly I'll be working with WEDC, obviously working with Marquette, to think what kind of incentives or things can we do to keep all these kids that are graduating with these technology degrees. How do we keep them in our state and have them, be taxpayers in the state of Wisconsin and help us build, really a bright future for Milwaukee. And last but not least, while I've had this, amazing opportunity to help out at Marquette and to do some of the philanthropic things and investing things that I'm doing, I am, talking to a lot of private equity companies, and it's funny. My wife laughs every day. I get more calls about maybe being a CEO or other things for companies. And one of the things that I'm really putting down as a decision criteria, if I do take another operational role, is, can I put a presence in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin? So the companies that want me to be CEO that are just Silicon Valley based or just East Coast based, that there's not an opportunity to help grow the ecosystem, I'm reticent to take, because I really believe in this, and I think it's great for our community, and it'll be great for the future of our city. Love to take questions. I only like really long questions. The 3-part minimum. Sorry, Todd. I have to be. I'm contrarian.
David, thank you for coming to our club. We really appreciate your time here and also your investment in our community. My question is, when you look at entrepreneurial ecosystems, talent, ideas, and money are the ingredients, and we still seem to have a lack of first and second stage dollars here for investments in new startups. So do you have any thoughts or ideas about how we might address that?
Yeah, great question. I think part of it is, to build an ecosystem, it has to grow virally. And the reason why Silicon Valley has it is all the graduates from Stanford and Berkeley are creating a pool of talent that investors recognize. And so historically, a lot of startups, even if they were founded in Milwaukee, they end up moving to Silicon Valley to get the engineering talent. So I think some of the things I was talking about is key to it. I think there's money. There's so much venture money right now, and there's a lot of things. I'm involved in a new venture fund that started in Milwaukee, and I know there's a couple others even sprinkling up. I don't think it's a matter of the funding. I think we have to get more of a talent pool here to be recognized, so that people believe that the company can scale. Because if they don't think the investors want to see the company get large, and if they think it's going to hit a ceiling because we don't have the talent pool in order to grow the company, then that'll be the challenge. So I would really put a focus on creating a talent pool here, which is why I hope there's more Open Govs that bring at least a division or a kind of a regional headquarters here. It doesn't have to be the headquarters. We need to get people here that work in software, and it'll grow from there, because that's how Silicon Valley grows. It grows virally. People leave their company and go start a company, and it kind of feeds on itself, and we need to get that flywheel going here.
David, speaking of flywheels, you talked about watching trends. So what are some emerging trends you're keeping an eye on?
So I think there's a lot of talk about crypto. Not everybody understands the technology behind crypto. It's not just about coins and the Coinbase and the currency. There's a lot of technology right now, and a lot of highly valued companies that are using the concepts behind crypto, the encryption and distributed ledgers, to run companies, to make sure everything's exact and take out manual process and have the computers do that. I think there's a lot of companies that are blowing up right now that are trying to use the underlying technology kind of mainstream, right? That I also think there's a lot going on, a lot of investment in the driverless cars and ecosystems of what has to go on with electric vehicles, driverless cars. And then last but not least, there's a lot of talk about Metaverse, which is this kind of virtual reality world. I personally don't know, for sure that that has, any time in the next 5 years, the business application but there's companies that are using that kind of virtual technology as well. So those are 3 that I'm seeing. And then really just the continued proliferation of cloud technology, which I've been part of, are the main things. Hopefully that answers.
As you know, the business phrase is culture eats strategy for lunch. From the standpoint of generations, Milwaukee has a reputation from the standpoint of its old culture is risk averse, conservative, etc. The young culture, if you need STEM graduates, is youth would rather eat broccoli than STEM. So please address the aspects of the old culture, risk adverse, and the young culture, math adverse.
Yeah, it's a great question, Richard. That was a great conversation on your podcast, because in some ways we are very risk averse, but not in every way. But I think you're right. I think that has been one of the things I think in Milwaukee, more than in the politics and the conservative approach to everything. It doesn't allow progression of the city. In fact, I've met with Mayor Barrett and other people, and I've tried to talk to them about, we have to accelerate the speed of change because the world's changing and the young people know it. And when they see their politicians and their leaders not keeping up, right, what that does is cities like Miami, cities like Nashville, cities like Denver that embrace the change and embrace the speed of change and create more of a innovative culture that permeates. In fact, I was with David Crawley one time at dinner, and he was saying, Dave, did the stuff you're doing at Open Gov, does it really help, like transparency in government and things like that? And I said, what it does is it instills, being more forthright and showing people, the changes in the innovation and embracing it and not being afraid to share information or data, I think is important. I think transparency is important. And I think the young people, they demand that and they want that. So I think it's really the speed, and I think it's our business leaders, but it's also the politicians, is they have to embrace the speed of change and know that it's competitive with other cities too. We can't compete with other cities if we stay hunkered down to old ways. And I think there's a lot of people that want to do that here. So it's not that there's not an interest. I think it's a matter of knowing how. And I hope living in Silicon Valley and the speed at which the world changed, like monthly versus 5 years cycles, right? Hopefully, I can help bring a little bit of that here. But I agree with the culture. We need to tweak it. Great question.